The morning was calm. The kind of calm that makes the ocean look like glass, stretching flat and endless under a pale sky. The air was warm, salty, the sun rising slow and golden over the horizon. I sat at the edge of the charter boat, legs dangling over the side, wetsuit half-zipped, regulator clutched in nervous hands. It wasn't my first dive, not by a long shot. But there was something about doing it alone, no buddy, no backup, that set my pulse racing harder than the caffeine I downed before dawn. The captain, an older Bahamian man with weathered skin and sharp eyes, didn't say much. Just watched me with a look that was hard to read. When I'd told him where I wanted to dive, he'd hesitated, muttered something about currents, about things left alone. But when I slid a folded wad of cash into his hand, he nodded, untied the boat, and brought me here. Now he leaned against the railing, arms folded, as I checked my gauges one last time. "You go deep there," he said finally, his accent thick, his voice low. "Too deep. The reef?" She stopped. "Then there is nothing. Black water, you understand?" I nodded. "I'll be careful." He shook his head. "Careful don't mean nothing down there." Before I could ask what he meant, he turned away, lighting a cigarette, leaving me with my own pounding heartbeat. The gear felt heavy as I zipped up. Tank snug on my back. Regulator clipped. Mask secure. Fins ready. I sat there for a long moment, staring at the endless water, wondering why I was doing this. Maybe it was boredom. Maybe pride. Maybe the quiet thrill of knowing I'd go where few ever dared. Or maybe it was just that I didn't believe the old man's stories. I spat into my mask, rinsed it, slid it on, and bit down on the regulator. One deep breath, then another. The hiss of oxygen filled my ears. I adjusted my fins, leaned back, and fell into the sea. The ocean swallowed me in a rush of bubbles and blue. The world above vanished in seconds. The surface shimmered faintly overhead, sunlight fracturing into golden rays. My body sank, weightless, the heavy tank forgotten, the water pressing cool against my skin. I steadied my breathing. In, out, the regulator hissed with each cycle, comforting, steady. Below me, the reef stretched wide. Coral bloomed in every color, fish darting in shimmering schools. Parrotfish, angelfish, flashes of silver and gold weaving in perfect synchrony. It was beautiful. It always was at first. I followed the reef downward. The coral grew denser, taller, rising in spires and arches. A turtle glided past lazily, its shell mottled green and brown, its eyes ancient. For a while, I forgot my nerves. Forgot the old man's words. It was easy to lose yourself here, in the silence broken only by breath and the occasional click of distant shrimp. But then I noticed it. The reef ended. Not gradually, not fading into sand or scattered coral heads. It just stopped, like a cliff. Beyond it, there was nothing but darkness. A drop-off. The wall of the reef plunged into black, the water below so dark it was like looking into a bottomless pit. I hovered at the edge, adjusting my buoyancy, staring into the abyss. Sunlight barely touched it, just a faint green haze that faded into black. It felt like standing on the edge of the world. Something moved. Far below. A shape, too large to be a fish, too slow to be a shark. It slid through the dark just beyond the reach of light, massive, silent. I froze. Held my breath without meaning to. Then forced myself to exhale, bubbles racing upward. The shape was gone. I blinked hard, shaking my head. Maybe it was a shadow. A trick of the light. But my hands trembled as I adjusted my gauge. Plenty of oxygen. Depth manageable. I could turn back. I should turn back. But the darkness below pulled at me. And before I realized it, I was angling my fins down, sinking into the trench. The first thing I noticed was the quiet. It wasn't that the ocean had ever been noisy. Sound travels strange here, muffled and warped. But usually there was life. The crackle of shrimp, the clicks of distant dolphins, the soft rush of fish schooling past. Now, Nothing. Only my breathing. The hollow hiss of the regulator. The bubbles climbing steadily toward the surface I couldn't see anymore. It felt like I'd left the world behind. The reef wall plunged beside me, rough stone streaked with coral, then barren rock. My light caught grooves etched deep like claw marks, though I knew it was probably erosion. Probably. I checked my depth gauge. The needle twitched, then steadied. Deeper than I'd planned. I should have turned back, but the darkness below called and I answered. The fish were gone. At first, I thought I just hadn't noticed them slipping away. One moment there were tangs and wrasses weaving in and out of coral heads. The next, emptiness. No movement, no color. I twisted in the water, scanning all directions. Nothing. Not even a flicker of silver in the distance. The silence pressed harder, heavy in my ears. My own breathing grew too loud, ragged, echoing inside my mask. A flicker of light caught my eye. Not my beam, not sunlight, something else. Far below in the darkness, a pale glow shimmered. Not steady, not natural, pulsing faintly, as if in rhythm with my heartbeat. I blinked, shook my head. My gauge twitched again, the depth needle bouncing before settling. Was it broken, or was the water itself interfering? I angled down, chasing the faint light. The trench narrowed as I descended. The walls of the reef loomed closer, jagged and sharp. My beam stretched only a few feet ahead before it was swallowed by black. Something brushed my fin. I kicked instinctively, spinning around, heart hammering. Nothing? No fish, no current. Only water pressing from every side. I clenched the harpoon gun strapped to my chest, though I knew it wouldn't matter down here. Not against whatever lived in the dark. The glow pulsed again. Brighter this time. It came from deeper still, at the edge of visibility. Not a single point of light, many. Faint orbs drifting in the water, rising slowly like bubbles. For a moment, I thought they were bioluminescent jellyfish, tiny and delicate. But they didn't drift with the current. They rose in perfect formation. Like eyes. Watching. My chest tightened. My breathing quickened. The regulator hissed louder. I forced myself to check my gauges again. Depth, erratic. Oxygen, plenty. But the compass... It spun wildly, the needle jerking in circles, as if the ocean had swallowed direction itself. I swallowed hard, tasted metal. The lights below pulsed once more. And I swore I heard something, faint and distant, seeping through the water. A voice, not words, not language. Just sound, low, drawn out, like a call. And the silence around me felt like it was waiting for my answer. The glow guided me. Faint, steady, pulsing from below. Each beat tugged at my chest, my lungs, like the ocean itself was pulling me down. I kicked slowly, careful not to waste oxygen. My beam stretched only a few feet before dissolving into the black, but the light below grew brighter. Shapes flickered in the haze. Not fish, not jellyfish, not anything I'd ever seen before. When I finally hit the trench floor, my fins stirred up a cloud of silt. The glow shimmered through it, breaking into pieces like stars. And then I saw them. Pillars. They jutted from the seabed in a wide circle, stone worn smooth by time, encrusted with coral and barnacles. Some leaned, cracked. Others stood tall and straight, too deliberate to be natural. Carvings covered them, symbols etched deep, half buried under centuries of growth. Spirals, eyes, shapes that made no sense, twisting in patterns that hurt to look at. I drifted closer, heart hammering, breath echoing loud in my mask. My hand reached out without thinking, brushing one of the carvings. The stone was warm. Warm. At this depth, in this cold? Impossible. I yanked my hand back, bubbles exploding from my regulator. The glow pulsed stronger, spilling up from the center of the circle. Something lay there. At first, I thought it was a rock, a jagged formation, black and ridged. But as I circled, light catching at different angles, I saw it wasn't stone at all. It was metal. A wreck. the bow of a ship jutted from the sand, half swallowed by coral. Not wood, not modern steel, but something older. Iron, riveted, pitted with rust yet intact. The nameplate was still visible, though the letters were warped, obscured by barnacles. I wiped a hand across it. Marib. I froze. No, it couldn't be. The Maribel had gone down miles from here. This was something else. Something older. And it was fused to the pillars, metal and stone tangled together like they'd grown that way. My gauge twitched violently. Depth needle spasming. Oxygen meter jumping from full to half to empty before stabilizing again. My compass spun wildly, then stopped. Pointed down. Toward the glow. I followed it with my light. It came from cracks in the seabed, thin fissures between the pillars. A pale green radiance seeped out, pulsing in slow rhythm. I hovered above it, breath loud, bubbles rushing past my ears. And then I heard it again. The voice, clearer this time, closer. My chest seized. I shook my head, bubbles streaming, regulator hissing. It wasn't possible. Sound doesn't travel like that underwater. Voices don't carry. But it was there. Deep, calm, patient. Closer. Movement. Something slid between the pillars. Massive, slow. At first, I thought it was a shadow cast by my own light. But shadows don't curve around you. This did. It drifted along the trench floor, too big, too long, disappearing into the cracks. For a moment, I thought I saw an eye. Huge, lidless, reflecting my beam. And then it was gone. The glow pulsed again, brighter now, washing the carvings in green. My gauges flickered, my light sputtered. "Join," the voice whispered, seeping through the water. I kicked back, panicked bubbles racing upward, but the trench seemed to close in tighter. The pillars loomed, their carvings writhing like they were alive. My chest burned, my breath grew ragged. And somewhere in the glow, something shifted, rising. The glow swelled. It pulsed through the cracks between the pillars, painting the seabed in pale green. The carvings writhed in its light, twisting into shapes that hadn't been there seconds before. Eyes, spirals, mouths opening wide. I floated in the middle of it all, regulator hissing, heart hammering against my ribs. My hand trembled on the harpoon gun, though I knew it was useless. What good was steel against the ocean itself? Closer. The voice slid through the water. Not sound, not vibration, something else. It was inside my mask, inside my head. I kicked backward, fins stirring silt. The glow followed. Closer. It wasn't asking. It was pulling. Shapes stirred at the edge of vision. For a moment, I thought the fish had returned. But no, these weren't fish. They were too thin, too long. Limbs, not fins. Their movements were jerky, disjointed, like broken marionettes tugged on tangled strings. They drifted between the pillars, circling the glow. Figures. Their bodies swayed as if caught in a current, but the water around me was still. Their faces were pale, blurred, as if smeared by the sea itself. One turned toward me. Its mouth hung open. Bubbles spilled out, but it wasn't wearing a regulator. I jerked back, striking the reef wall. My mask rattled. My regulator hissed loud as I sucked in a panicked breath. The figure drifted closer. It wore a cap. A uniform, torn, salt-stained, but intact. A sailor. One of the Maribel's crew. Join. The voice layered now, not just one but many. Dozens, hundreds, all spilling from their mouths. Join us. My gauges spasmed. Oxygen dropping fast, though I hadn't been down long enough for it. My depth needle spun. My compass pointed down, locked toward the glow. My chest ached, breath ragged. I tried to kick upward. The trench didn't move. The pillars only grew taller, stretching higher than before. The figures shifted with me, circling. Their eyes were black voids. Their mouths moved, spilling bubbles, words I shouldn't have been able to hear. Lights in the water. The water is waiting. Join. I spun, desperate for escape, and froze. The wreck was closer now. Its jagged bow jutted high, metal fused with stone, impossibly large. Barnacles wept brine like open wounds. And through the shattered portholes, faces stared. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Pale and wide-eyed, pressed against the glass, mouths opening and closing in silence. I blinked, and they were gone. But the glow burned brighter, spilling from the cracks in the seabed. The ground shifted beneath me. The pillars groaned, and the trench floor split wider. Something rose. Not fast, not sudden. Slow, patient. A shape larger than the wreck, larger than the trench. It slid between the cracks, ridged and coiled, skin black and glistening with bioluminescent veins that pulsed with the same rhythm as the glow. An eye rolled open in the dark. Lidless, vast, reflecting my beam like a mirror. It fixed on me. And the voices screamed in unison. Join? My body seized. My limbs stopped responding. The harpoon gun drifted from my hand, sinking slowly into the silt. I wasn't moving myself anymore. The water carried me down toward the glow, toward the cracks. Toward it. You are chosen, the voice whispered. But it wasn't whispering. It was inside me. Inside my lungs, my chest, my skull. I screamed, but all that came out were bubbles. The glow swallowed everything. Then, black. My flashlight sputtered and died. My gauges went dark. The voices stopped. I floated in perfect silence, weightless, blind, deaf except for the thunder of my own pulse. And in that silence, I realized I wasn't alone. Something was behind me, closer than my shadow, breathing with me. I kicked hard, forcing myself upward. The glow faded below, swallowed by the dark, but I could still feel it, pressing on my chest, curling around my spine. Every breath I took rattled like something else was sharing my regulator. The water should have grown lighter as I climbed, but it didn't. The dark followed me. I checked my gauges. Empty. No, that wasn't right. I hadn't been down long enough. My oxygen couldn't be gone already. I tapped the faceplate, shook it. The needle flickered, bounced, then dropped again. Empty. My lungs tightened instantly. Every breath felt thinner, more desperate. My chest heaved. Bubbles spiraled upward, but they didn't rise straight. They curved, bent sideways, like the ocean itself was twisting. Something drifted in front of me. For a heartbeat, I thought it was a diver. Another wetsuit, mask gleaming in my light. Relief surged hot in my chest. But then it lifted its hand, and I saw its fingers. Too long? Too thin? Webbed? And the mask wasn't a mask. It was a face. Its eyes were black voids. Its regulator was a gaping mouth, bubbling endlessly. Up, 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 it whispered. The voice was mine. I kicked past it, panic flooding my veins. The reef wall loomed ahead. Familiar. Relief clawed through me. If I followed it up, I'd reach the surface. I reached out to steady myself against the stone. But the carvings were there. The same spirals, the same eyes, burned into the rock higher than they should have been. I yanked my hand back as the grooves writhed under my glove. The reef stretched endlessly upward, the same patterns repeating, like the ocean was folding in on itself. No matter how high I swam, I never got closer to the light. My lungs screamed. Every breath came shorter, thinner. Black spots crowded the edges of my vision. I blinked hard and saw Jake. Floating just ahead, grinning wide, boat hook still in his hands. His eyes gleamed in the dark. "Come on," he said. The words were clear. No bubbles, no regulator. "You can make it." He beckoned me upward. For a moment, I almost believed him, almost kicked toward him. Then his grin stretched wider, too wide, splitting his face into a jagged tear. And his eyes went black. "Join!" I screamed, bubbles ripping from my mouth, and kicked hard past him. The surface finally appeared above, pale, faint, but there. Light shimmered down through the water. I clawed toward it, every stroke weaker than the last. My lungs were fire, my chest collapsing. The water pressed tighter, dragging me back, but I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. I broke through with a gasp that tore my throat raw. Air, sweet burning air. I ripped the regulator from my mouth, sucking oxygen, coughing seawater. The boat bobbed nearby, the captain's silhouette against the sky. He was shouting, waving. I kicked for it, arms shaking, body numb. Something broke the surface behind me. A ripple, a shadow. The water heaved, pushing me forward, as if something vast had risen just beneath. I didn't dare look back. I reached the ladder, clutched it with trembling hands, and hauled myself up onto the deck, collapsing in a choking, shivering heap. The captain's cigarette dangled forgotten from his lips. His eyes were wide, fixed on the sea behind me. I rolled weakly to one side, gasping, and followed his gaze. The water was flat, calm, empty. But far out, at the edge of the horizon, the surface shimmered faintly. Lights, green, pulsing. Waiting. The captain didn't speak on the ride back. He just stared straight ahead, cigarette trembling between his fingers, lips pressed tight. The little boat thudded across the waves, but I barely felt it. I sat slumped against the bench, wetsuit dripping, chest heaving with every ragged breath. My regulator lay at my feet, useless now. My gauges flickered faintly, as though they'd burned out. I tried to tell him what I'd seen. The pillars, the wreck, the crew that shouldn't be alive, the voice that wasn't a voice. But when I opened my mouth, nothing came out. Not words, just a wet, rattling cough. Salt burned my throat. The captain glanced at me once, his eyes sharp and unreadable, then looked away. Back on shore, the world should have felt normal again. The sand warm, the air alive with gulls and chatter. But it didn't. The colors seemed dimmer. The sounds muffled, like I was still underwater. I staggered into the shallows, peeling the wetsuit down, sucking in lungfuls of air that never seemed to fill me. The captain untied the gear from the boat, muttering under his breath. I caught only one word. Marked. For days after, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I was back there, drifting between the pillars, hearing the voice, feeling the glow in my bones. Closer. When I finally slept, I dreamed of the crew, faces pressed against glass, mouths opening and closing, black eyes watching. When I woke, the sheets beneath me were damp with seawater. The lights followed me. At first, I thought it was a trick of the eyes, street lamps flickering, reflections in windows. But then I saw them on the shoreline, pulsing faint and green, bobbing in perfect rhythm with my breath. The same lights from the trench. The same lights that had called to me. I smashed my gauges, threw the regulator into the trash, swore I'd never dive again. But the pull hasn't stopped. When I walk near the water, I feel it. The tide pressing against the shore like it's breathing with me. The hum in my bones, faint but steady, rising with each passing day. Sometimes I wake in the night with salt on my lips, my chest aching like I've been holding my breath. And sometimes, when the house is quiet, I hear bubbles drifting past my ears. The worst was the dream I had last night. I was standing on the beach, alone. The sea was flat, endless, stretching black under a moonless sky. The lights rose from the water, dozens, hundreds, spreading across the horizon. And beneath them, a shape stirred. Massive, coiled, patient. Its eye rolled open, green light spilling across the waves. And the voice whispered, not from the water, not from the sky, not from anywhere outside me. From inside. You came closer, now you belong. I woke gasping, the taste of salt burning my throat. This morning, I swore I saw a handprint on my bathroom mirror. Wet, rust-colored. The same as the one Aaron left on the Maribel. I wiped it away. But when I turned back, it was there again. Fingers longer, wider, not mine, not human. I don't dive anymore, but I don't think it matters. Because the ocean isn't waiting for me to come back. It's coming for me, and when it does, I'll hear that voice one last time. Join